Welcome to the Miami International Autodrome, home of the Miami Grand Prix. This exciting track circumnavigates the Hard Rock Stadium, home to the National Football League outfit, the Miami Dolphins. A lap of the Miami Grand Prix features 3.36 miles of track around the Hard Rock Stadium, and 19 corners make up the Miami International Autodrome, which will challenge the drivers in a tight wheel-to-wheel race. So with the race not far away from starting, here's what today's grid rundown looks like. Lewis Hamilton lines up on pole position, edging out Lando Norris, who'll start from P2. Looking at the rest of today's grid, we have Leclerc, Tsunoda, George Russell and Antonelli, Piastri, Verstappen, Lawson and Isaac Hadjar, Albon, Stroll, Carlos Sainz and Fernando Alonso, Behrman, Ocon, Jack Doohan and Pierre Gasly, Hülkenberg and Gabriel Bortoleto rounds off the grid. Which of these talented drivers will come out on top today? And alongside me here today in the commentary box, Anthony Davidson. Now, I'll be generous here. It's not that long ago that you were racing and entertaining us on a Sunday. But in the years since, the sport has changed quite a bit, hasn't it?
Yeah, it really has, Crofty. You know, the cars have got bigger, they're heavier, but critically, there's more downforce to play with as well now. There was around 4 tons of downforce on the car at 300 kilometres an hour when I drove. You're now looking more towards 5 tons of downforce. So there's a big difference in performance. But because of that, the car being heavier and bigger, you've got to drive in a smoother way. You've got to look after it a bit more. You've got to nurse it through the slow speed corners more. They were much more nimble, agile machines when I drove in Formula 1 compared to now.
Radio check, radio check.
Radio check.
Okay, DRS is now available. Good job, that was the fastest lap of the race so far.
Was a nice car, very nice car, amazing car.
What a mate, that was a very, very, very strong drive.
It's Yuki Yahei! Yuki Tsunoda wins!
And 3 wins in a row now, of course, Croft. You've thrown the gauntlet down. The drivers are out there now. They realise that they are the target. They're the ones to beat. They've got the energy, they've got the momentum on their side.
Only 3 can take to the podium, and here they come. And the little man towers over the rest. It's the top step of the podium for Yuki Tsunoda. After an event like that, who knows what the sport has in store for us next time out? Be sure to join us once again as we continue to bring you all the excitement of Formula One. Well, today's venue has a full name that is perhaps lesser known than its informal one. So today we're at Imola, or to give it its official title, the Autodromo Internazionale Enzo e Dino Ferrari, named after their legacy, a beautiful tribute at a beautiful circuit. It's time, everyone, for the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix. 3.1 miles of track at Imola featuring 19 turns, 9 to the right and 10 to the left. Remember that Imola differs from most other Formula One tracks as it's taken anti-clockwise. Let's hope nobody forgets that today. The exit from turn 18 will probably be the setup for many of today's overtakes, leading as it does into the longest straight on the circuit and its only DRS zone. Let's run you through the driver grid order for today's exciting race. Andrea Kimi Antonelli lines up on pole position, and Yuki Tsunoda completes the front row. As we continue through the rest of the grid today, we have Piastri, Verstappen, George Russell, and Hamilton, Norris, Leclerc, Fernando Alonso, and Isaac Hadjar, Lawson, Albon, Carlos Sainz, and Stroll, Gasly, Hülkenberg, Jack Doohan, and Gabriel Bortoleto. Ocon and Ollie Behrman rounds off the grid. And with lights out just moments away, it's time to go down to the track. And alongside me in the commentary box today, a man who I always look up to, which is easier said than done, Anthony Davidson. I know what we've got to do before the start of today's race, but what about our driver? what do the final hours look like for them?
Well, for them, you've got your pre-race rituals that you go through. You see different drivers that, some have got their headphones on, they're listening to the music. Some drivers really absorb the energy from the crowd and they're there waving to them. Other drivers, they go within themselves. They chat to their engineers, absorbing that information, that vital information that you need to carry you through the race. And, those pre-race rituals are essential to making things systematic. We do a lot of Grand Prix in a season, and the more systematic you can be, the easier you are within that environment.
Okay, mate, radio check, please, radio check.
Radio check.
DRS now enabled. DRS enabled. Great work, that's a new fastest lap of the race. Final lap, final lap. Push, push.
Congratulations for your achievements.
Well done, Max.
The checkered flag is out. The crowd roar their approval for Yuki Tsunoda.
And now with 4 race victories in a row, Crofty, it shows the power that they have, this stranglehold on the championship, and it's for the others to try and stop them before it's too late.
It's been a hard afternoon of brilliant racing, but now it's time for some proper celebrations. The podium awaits. What a victory for a very popular young man. Yuki Tsunoda takes the top step today. Well, that was certainly an exciting weekend of Formula One. Be sure to join us for more exciting Formula One action very soon.